Karen stormed across the cul-de-sac, shouting that her neighbor had a gun. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the street. But when the cops arrived, the salute left everyone speechless. The evening was warm, the kind of suburban calm where sprinklers ticked rhythmically, children's laughter faded as they were called in for dinner, and porch lights flicked on one by one. Our cul-de-sac had always been the picture of peace. That was until Karen decided otherwise. I had just set a watering can down on my porch when I saw her storming across the street. Her sandals slapped the pavement with a force that carried more anger than steps should. Her blonde bob bounced with each stride, her clipboard tucked under her arm like it was a badge of authority. "Hey!" she screeched, her voice slicing through the evening calm. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't flinch. Karen had made a habit of confrontation. Whether it was mailboxes being the wrong shade of beige or garbage cans being 2 inches too close to the curb, she found something. Always. "What's wrong this time?" I asked, my tone deliberately calm. "You know what's wrong." Her finger jabbed the air like a weapon. "You're a danger to this neighborhood and I'm not going to tolerate it anymore." Neighbors' blinds shifted, curious eyes peeked out. Karen thrived on an audience. "A danger?" I raised a brow. "For watering my plants?" She huffed, stamping her foot like a scorned child. "Don't play dumb with me. I've seen things. You think you're slick sneaking around at night? Keeping your garage closed all the time? What are you hiding?" I almost laughed. Her paranoia was a beast that never slept. But tonight her performance carried a new edge. "You're reaching, Karen. Go home." That set her off like a lit fuse. She stepped closer, voice climbing an octave. "Don't you dare dismiss me. I know you've got a weapon in there. I've heard rumors. And I won't have you putting this entire street at risk." Before I could respond, she whipped her phone from her pocket and dialed 911. Her voice dripped with false panic. "Yes, there's a woman here, she has a gun. She's threatening me." My stomach dropped. "Are you insane?" I hissed, stepping back, careful to keep my hands visible, my tone steady. She turned away from me, pressing the phone tight to her ear, her performance now in full swing. "Please hurry. She's dangerous. She said she'll shoot me." I couldn't believe it. She was fabricating an entire story right there on the street, while neighbors leaned closer to their windows, gasps muffled behind curtains. Karen lowered the phone, a smug smile spreading across her face. "You're finished? The police are on their way. Let's see how you explain your way out of this one." My pulse thudded in my ears. This wasn't just a neighborhood spat anymore. This was serious, dangerous. A false accusation involving a gun meant the police would arrive tense, expecting the worst. The distant wail of sirens confirmed it. Red and blue flashes lit the horizon, growing brighter with each passing second. Karen folded her arms, chin high, relishing every moment. "Better get ready," she sneered. "They don't go easy on people like you." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to remain composed. Running, panicking, any sudden movement, could be fatal when the officers arrived primed for conflict. The sirens grew louder until finally, the first cruiser screeched around the corner, tires grinding against asphalt. Another followed close behind, lights blaring, radios crackling. Neighbors spilled onto porches, some holding phones, recording, others whispering to each other in hushed tones. Karen stood tall in the center of my driveway, pointing at me like a prosecutor before a jury. "There she is," she yelled as the officers jumped out of their vehicles. "That's the one. She has a gun." Spotlights snapped on, blinding me in their glare. Commands echoed across the street. "Hands up. Now." I obeyed instantly, raising both arms above my head. My chest tightened as the weight of the situation sank in. This wasn't just humiliation, this was life-threatening. Karen grinned, finally satisfied. She thought victory was hers. The officers fanned out, weapons holstered but hands ready. One stepped forward, his flashlight fixed on me, his voice firm. "Ma'am, stay exactly where you are. Keep your hands visible." I didn't move. My neighbor's eyes burned into me, the scene unfolding like a live drama for the whole street to judge. Karen's voice cut through again. "What are you waiting for? Arrest her." She threatened me. "She's dangerous." The officer's gaze didn't waver, his hand hovering near his holster. "Ma'am, do you have any weapons on you?" "No," I answered calmly, my voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. "I don't own a gun." "She's lying." Karen laughed sharply, tossing her head back. "Oh please. She's good at pretending, but she's not fooling me. Check her. Check her house." The officer exchanged a look with his partner. A decision was being made. My heart pounded harder. Then, in a commanding tone, the officer said, "Ma'am, step forward slowly. I'll need to see some identification." The world went silent around me. The neighbors stopped whispering. Karen's smirk deepened, her arms crossed in triumph. And as the police lights painted the street in frantic colors, I knew this moment would decide everything. Police demand the homeowner's ID. Karen smirks, certain she's about to see her neighbor dragged away. The spotlight from the cruiser burned into my eyes, making it impossible to see the faces behind the beams. My breath came slow and steady, but inside my heart raced. Hands raised high, I didn't move an inch. The lead officer advanced cautiously, his partner flanking him. Radios crackled on their belts, a constant stream of static and clipped voices feeding into the tense night air. "Ma'am, keep your hands where I can see them," the officer repeated, tone measured, sharp. I answered evenly, refusing to let Karen's lies dictate my panic. "I have nothing on me." From the corner of my eye, I saw Karen's silhouette. Her arms were crossed, shoulders high, her lips twisted into a smug little smile. She was drinking in the spectacle she had engineered. "She's dangerous." Karen shouted again, as though she feared the officers might forget her version of the story. "She threatened me with a gun. You need to take her in before she hurts someone." A ripple moved through the gathered neighbors. I caught the faint shake of a head from Mr. Patel next door. He had lived here long enough to know Karen's routine. But knowing wasn't the same as intervening. Most people stayed silent, fearful of getting dragged into Karen's chaos. The officer motioned with 2 fingers. "Step forward slowly. Stop when I tell you." I did exactly that. My steps were deliberate, my hands still high. Every movement felt magnified in the flashing red and blue glow, like the entire street was holding its breath. "Stop there," the officer ordered. He approached, flashlight steady, and looked me up and down. "Turn around." Slowly. I complied. He patted down my sides quickly and thoroughly. "Nothing." He stepped back. "She's clear." Karen's voice pierced the silence. "What?" No. She probably hid it in the house. Or the garage. She's sneaky, officer. You have to search everything." The second officer glanced at her, his jaw tightening. "Ma'am, we'll handle this." But Karen wasn't finished. She jabbed her finger toward my front door. "Check the car. She always keeps that garage shut. Who knows what she's hiding in there? Drugs, weapons, anything." I clenched my jaw but said nothing. Every word I spoke could be twisted. Calm was my only shield. The lead officer turned to me again. His voice was softer this time, but still firm. "Ma'am, do you have any weapons on this property?" "No," I said. My voice carried clearly, steady. "And I've never threatened her." "She's making this up." Karen scoffed so loudly it nearly drowned my words. "Lies. All lies. She's been dangerous since she moved in. Just ask anyone." But the neighbors stayed quiet. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others held their phones higher, recording. The tide was beginning to shift, even if Karen didn't realize it yet. The officer nodded once. "All right. Identification, please." That word, identification, made Karen's grin return wider than ever. Yes, she shrieked. "See who she really is. You'll find out she doesn't belong here. She's trouble. Arrest her already." I moved slowly, deliberately. "My wallet is in my back pocket," I told the officer, keeping my voice even. "I'm going to reach for it with my right hand." His hand hovered near his holster, but he gave a single nod. "Go ahead." Slowly. Every second stretched into eternity as I pulled the leather wallet free. I held it up, flipping it open carefully. The officer reached out and took it, his flashlight sweeping over the contents. His partner leaned closer, peering over his shoulder. Their postures changed in an instant. The rigid edge softened, replaced with something else. Something almost startled. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy reveling in what she thought was my downfall. "Finally," she sneered. "Now you'll see who you're dealing with. She's been hiding her real identity. Mark my words." The officer didn't move. His eyes fixed on the small card inside my wallet. His jaw clenched, his shoulders stiffened. Then, in one smooth motion, he snapped the wallet shut and handed it back to me. Karen frowned. "Well, aren't you going to?" The officer cut her off, his voice steady but different now. More formal. "Ma'am, stand by." Karen blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "She's the criminal here. I'm the one who called you." The officer didn't answer her. Instead, he turned to his partner, a subtle nod passing between them. And then, before the entire street, he shifted his stance. His heels clicked together. His spine straightened. He raised his right hand in a sharp, precise salute. For a moment, silence blanketed the street. Even the police radio seemed to hush. My neighbors gasped, the sound of shock rippling outward. Phones recorded every second. Karen's smug expression collapsed into confusion. What are you doing? The other officer followed suit, snapping into the same rigid salute. My wallet was still in my hand. The military identification card glinted briefly in the cruiser's spotlight. Karen's eyes darted back and forth, trying to understand. Her lips parted, but no words came. The lead officer dropped his salute and turned sharply toward her. His expression was unreadable, but his tone carried weight. Do you have any idea who this woman is? Officers salute the homeowner after seeing her ID. Karen, stunned and confused, is asked if she knows who her neighbor really is. The silence that followed the salute was heavier than the sirens had been. Neighbors froze on porches, phones trembling in their hands. Even the kids who had been whispering behind a hedge stopped breathing. Karen stood slack-jawed, her eyes bouncing between the two officers and me. Her voice, usually sharp as glass, cracked as she tried to recover. What is this? Why are you saluting her? The lead officer didn't answer. His gaze lingered on me for a beat, then shifted back to Karen. Ma'am, I think you need to calm down. Calm down? Karen's voice pitched higher, desperate now. You're supposed to be protecting us. She's dangerous. You're saluting a criminal. I slipped my wallet back into my pocket, saying nothing. I didn't need to. The weight of the truth hung in the air. But Karen wasn't finished. Her pride wouldn't allow it. She stepped forward, jabbing her finger again, this time at the officers. You don't understand. She's hiding something. She has to be. Look at her, always so secretive, always so quiet. That's not normal. That's suspicious. The younger officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, we've already cleared her. She doesn't have a weapon on her. Karen scoffed. Oh, please. Of course she doesn't have it on her. She's smarter than that. It's in her car. Or her garage. Or buried in her backyard for all we know. The crowd of neighbors shifted uncomfortably. A low murmur ran through them. Some nodded toward me, sympathy flickering in their eyes. Others simply stared at Karen like she had finally gone too far. Search it, Karen demanded, her voice trembling with obsession. Search everything. You'll find it. I know you will. The lead officer sighed, his patience fraying. We have no probable cause to search her property. Karen's face twisted, red blotches rising on her cheeks. Probable cause? I just gave you probable cause. I told you what I saw. That's enough. No, ma'am, the officer replied, his voice firm now. That's not how the law works. The words seemed to pierce Karen, but instead of deflating, she doubled down. You're useless. Useless. She spun on her heel, pointing at the neighbors. Didn't you hear it? Didn't you see it? Tell them. Tell them she threatened me. The neighbors looked at each other. Not one stepped forward. Mr. Patel cleared his throat, speaking softly but clearly. All I saw was you yelling, Karen. That's it. A wave of whispers followed. Karen's eyes went wide, betrayal flashing in them. Lies. You're all against me. You've always been against me. Her desperation clawed at the air. She turned back to the officers, panting now. She's dangerous, I swear it. Look at her house. That garage door is always shut. She's hiding something inside. Drugs, weapons, who knows? Just check it. Please. The lead officer exchanged a glance with his partner. Then he looked back at me. His voice was respectful. Ma'am, is there anything in your garage we should be aware of? I shook my head calmly. Nothing illegal. Nothing dangerous. Karen laughed bitterly, the sound raw and grating. Oh, she's good. She's practiced. But you can't let her get away with this. Her body trembled with rage, her voice splintering. She's a fraud. She's lying about who she is. That card, whatever it was, it's fake. It has to be fake. That struck a nerve with the officers. Their eyes sharpened, and the lead officer's voice dropped a register. Ma'am, you're bordering on obstruction. I'd advise you to stop. But Karen was beyond stopping. The fire in her eyes had consumed the last of her reason. She jabbed her finger at me one last time. Arrest her. She's a threat. If you don't do it, I'll call the chief myself. You'll all regret this. Gasps rippled through the neighbors. Someone muttered, she's lost it. Another whispered, this is going to get bad. The officer's hand shifted toward the cuffs on his belt. His gaze hardened, fixed on Karen. That's enough. You need to step back now. But Karen wasn't listening anymore. Her words came out in frantic bursts. She's a danger to our children. To our homes. You're blind if you can't see it. She's not who you think she is. Her tirade broke off when the younger officer raised a hand sharply. Stop. Right now. The silence that followed was deafening. Then he asked, his eyes narrowing. Do you want to know exactly who she is? Karen froze, her mouth still open. She blinked, thrown off balance. What do you mean? The officer's voice carried over the stunned street, low but cutting. You accused the wrong person tonight. Officer warns Karen she's accused the wrong person, hinting at the reveal of the homeowner's true identity. The air hung heavy, charged with something raw and electric. The younger officer's words, "You accused the wrong person tonight," echoed across the cul-de-sac like the crack of a gavel. Karen's smirk faltered, her bravado slipping for the first time. She blinked rapidly, her voice wobbling as she tried to piece her certainty back together. What do you mean by that? The officer didn't answer right away. He straightened his posture, then glanced at his partner, who gave the faintest nod. Both men stepped forward, their flashlights shifting from me to Karen. Karen's eyes darted between them, confusion hardening into defiance. No. Don't you dare try to protect her. I know what I saw. She's dangerous. You can't fool me with this act. I didn't move. My hands were at my sides now, my breathing steady. The truth was already in motion, it no longer needed my words. The lead officer reached into his pocket and pulled out the card he had just examined. He held it up between two fingers, turning it so the light caught the holographic seal. Ma'am, he said flatly, this is not fake. Karen squinted, stepping closer as if her nearsightedness could erase reality. What is that? Some kind of prop? A toy? Do you expect me to believe? His voice cut like steel. This is a United States military identification card. Active duty. Rank, Commander. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The neighbors murmured, a collective wave of disbelief crashing over the street. Karen froze, her mouth opening and closing without sound. The words she wanted to fling back at them all were stuck in her throat. The officer lowered the card, handing it back to me with deliberate respect. His tone shifted when he addressed me. Commander, thank you for your patience. The word, Commander, hung in the night air, undeniable, heavy, real. Karen staggered back a step as if the ground itself had shifted beneath her feet. Her arms, once crossed with smug triumph, now dangled at her sides. No, she whispered. Then louder, no. She's lying. She has to be. You're all lying. This is some kind of trick. The younger officer's patience snapped. His jaw clenched, his voice rising just enough to shake her. Do you think we salute tricks? And with that, in perfect unison, both officers raised their hands once more in a crisp, flawless salute. The motion was sharp, disciplined, reverent, the kind that only comes from years of training. Phones captured it all. Neighbors gasped again, some whispering in awe, others too stunned to speak. Karen's face went pale. The heat drained from her anger, leaving something brittle behind. She stammered, This doesn't mean anything. It doesn't prove she's not dangerous. Just because she has some card. The lead officer stepped forward, his boots firm against the pavement. His voice was no longer just steady, it carried authority that demanded silence. Ma'am, enough. You made a serious false claim tonight. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done? Karen's lips trembled. Her eyes darted toward the neighbors, searching for support, but found only cold stares. For once, no one was nodding along with her. No one was clapping for her crusade. You don't get it, she sputtered. She's tricked you all. She's dangerous. I can feel it. But her words fell flat, flimsy compared to the officer's salutes. I finally spoke, my voice calm but firm, slicing through her spiral. You spent months harassing me. Tonight you crossed a line. Karen spun toward me, desperate. Shut up. You don't belong here. You never did. Her words echoed in the silence, shrill and hollow. The lead officer shifted again, his hand brushing the cuffs on his belt. Ma'am, I suggest you stop right there before this escalates further. But Karen wasn't listening. Her face twisted, fueled by the last embers of pride. She pointed at me one final time, shouting, I don't care what your little card says. She's a fraud. And I'll prove it. I'll prove it if I have to search the house myself. She took a step toward my porch. The younger officer's arm shot out, blocking her path. His voice boomed across the cul-de-sac. Take one more step and you'll be leaving here in handcuffs. The crowd of neighbors erupted into hushed whispers. Phones tilted, zooming in, recording every detail. Karen froze mid-step, her face contorting as the reality of her situation settled in. But still her pride wouldn't let her retreat. She trembled with rage, her words spilling out in a final, desperate cry. "She's not who you think she is." Karen screams that the homeowner isn't who she appears, seconds after officers confirm her military commander identity. The word fraud ripped through the night, jagged and shrill. But instead of stoking the fire, it fizzled out like a wet match. For the first time in as long as I'd lived on this street, Karen's voice held no power. The cul-de-sac, moments ago buzzing with whispers, dropped into silence. Not the tense silence of fear, but the kind that swallows up noise when a truth is too heavy to ignore. Every set of eyes turned from Karen to me, then back again. Neighbors stood frozen on porches, cell phone cameras glowing like fireflies in the dark. Even the children clinging to their parents' legs stared wide-eyed, sensing the shift. Karen's chest heaved. She looked around wildly, searching for one sympathetic face in the crowd. She found none. The lead officer stepped closer, his shadow stretching long under the pulsing red and blue lights. His voice, low but cutting, carried through the still air. "Ma'am, you've said enough." Karen shook her head violently. No, you don't get it. You're all blind. She's dangerous. She doesn't belong here. You'll regret not listening to me." Her words trembled, stripped of conviction. What was once authority had collapsed into desperation. The younger officer took a step forward, his tone sharper. "Ma'am, we saluted because we recognize authority, real authority. Do you understand what that means?" Karen blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing. You can't be serious. She's just some woman with a fake badge." A murmur swept through the crowd. This time it wasn't disbelief in me, it was disbelief in her. Mr. Patel, usually the quietest man on the street, spoke up again. His voice was calm, measured, and firm. "Karen, we've all watched you pick fights for years. But tonight, you crossed the line." Others nodded, whispers of agreement weaving together into something stronger. "She called 911 for nothing. She put her in danger. This is harassment." Karen spun in a circle, panic flashing across her face as the tide turned. "You're all against me. Every one of you. Don't you see? She tricked you." But her voice cracked on the last word. The lead officer finally drew himself to full height, his tone clipped, professional, unyielding. "Ma'am, listen carefully. Filing a false report of a firearm is a serious offense. Do you understand the danger you caused tonight?" Karen's head snapped toward him, but no words came out. Her lips trembled, her hands twisting together as if trying to wring certainty out of thin air. I stood silent. I didn't need to defend myself. The officers' salutes, the neighbors' shifting voices, they spoke louder than I ever could. Karen's gaze darted back to me. Hatred smoldered there, but beneath it was something rawer, fear. "You think this makes you untouchable?" she hissed. "You think because you have some title, some piece of plastic, you're above the rest of us?" The younger officer's eyes narrowed. "Watch your words carefully." But Karen plowed forward, her pride dragging her deeper into the hole she'd dug. "Titles don't matter. Badges don't matter. She's still the same person, and I'll prove it." Her voice cracked again. This time, instead of silencing the street, laughter bubbled at the edges of the crowd. Quiet at first, then growing. Not cruel laughter, just the kind born from disbelief at how far one person could push themselves into delusion. Karen spun, her face flaming red, as neighbors shook their heads and whispered. The power she'd always wielded with gossip and fear had evaporated in an instant. The lead officer's tone dropped, each word deliberate. "Ma'am, I strongly suggest you stop talking before you say something you'll regret." Karen froze, her eyes wide, her mouth clamped shut. For once, silence was her only weapon, and even that rang hollow. The officer turned slightly, speaking now to the entire crowd. "There is no threat here. There never was. Everyone go back to your homes." A few neighbors hesitated, torn between dispersing and watching Karen unravel further. But one by one they stepped back, retreating into houses. Lights clicked off, doors shut. The spectacle was over, but the fallout was just beginning. Karen, however, stayed rooted in place. Her body trembled, her fists clenched. The defiance hadn't left her, but the confidence had. She looked like a queen stripped of her crown, still trying to command, but with no kingdom left to obey. The lead officer's gaze hardened. "Ma'am, you are very close to being taken into custody. Do you understand me?" Karen swallowed hard, her eyes flicking to the cuffs on his belt. For the first time all night she stepped back. But then, under her breath, she muttered, "This isn't over. It'll never be over." The younger officer heard it. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. What did you just say? Karen froze, caught in her own venom. The tension snapped taut again, tighter than before. The lead officer's hand hovered just above his cuffs. His partner's eyes locked on Karen. And across the street, every neighbor who still lingered lifted their phones a little higher, cameras rolling. Officers prepare to cuff Karen as she mutters a final threat under her breath, and the neighbors' cameras catch everything. The words slipped from Karen's lips like venom. This isn't over. It'll never be over. The younger officer's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing, his jaw rigid. The lead officer's hand hovered inches above his cuffs, his body coiled tight. "Ma'am," he said slowly, his voice low but sharp, "say that again." Karen's face blanched. Her bravado faltered under the weight of his stare. She shook her head quickly, her words tumbling over each other. "And no, I didn't mean. I was just upset. I didn't mean anything by it." But it was too late. The crowd that hadn't quite dispersed leaned in, ears straining. The whispers carried like smoke. She threatened her again. She just can't stop. She's digging her own grave. Karen's breathing quickened. The smugness was gone, panic clawed at her now. She wrung her hands together, her voice wobbling. "You don't understand, I was scared. I thought she had something. I was only trying to protect the neighborhood." The younger officer stepped forward, his shadow slicing through the flashing lights. "By lying to 911? By endangering your neighbor's life with a false claim of a firearm?" Karen stumbled backward, her sandals scraping against the asphalt. "No. I didn't lie, I thought." "You knew," the officer snapped, cutting her off. "You knew there was no weapon. You fabricated the story because you don't like her." Karen's lips trembled, her arms crossing over her chest like a child caught stealing cookies. She tried to hold herself together, but her words betrayed her desperation. "I was just concerned. She never talks to anyone. She keeps her garage shut. People like that have things to hide." A sharp laugh escaped from one of the neighbors still lingering at the edge of the cul-de-sac. "Things to hide? Karen, you snoop through people's trash every Thursday morning." Laughter rippled through the few who remained. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to strip the last threads of authority from her shoulders. Karen's face burned red. She spun toward the crowd, her voice shrill, breaking. "Shut up. All of you. You don't know what you're talking about." The lead officer raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. His voice cut through, firm and unwavering. "Ma'am, listen carefully. Filing a false report is not only irresponsible, it's a crime. Tonight, you endangered this woman's life. We approached this scene ready for a deadly encounter because of you." Karen's chest rose and fell rapidly, her panic spiraling. She waved her hands wildly as if trying to swat away his words. "No, no, no. You don't get it. She's dangerous. She's not who you think she is." The younger officer's patience broke. He stepped forward, his voice booming across the street. "Enough. She is a commander in the United States military. She served this country. And you," he jabbed a finger at Karen, "have wasted our time and resources with your lies." Karen's knees wobbled. She staggered back, almost tripping over the curb. Her voice dropped to a pleading whisper. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please don't arrest me. I was just trying to keep everyone safe." The lead officer's hand lingered on his cuffs. His voice was quieter now, but it carried an edge sharper than before. "You should have thought of that before you weaponized 911. Tears welled in Karen's eyes. They weren't tears of remorse but of fear. Her empire of gossip, intimidation, and manufactured authority was crumbling around her. She dropped her arms, her voice cracking into something pitiful. "Please. I can't have this on my record. You don't understand. The HOA, if they find out, I'll lose everything. My position, my respect." A bitter chuckle escaped me before I could stop it. "Respect? You lost that long before tonight." Karen whipped her head toward me, eyes blazing, tears streaking her cheeks. "You shut your mouth," she shrieked. "This is your fault. You ruined me." The younger officer took a step closer, his voice low and dangerous. "That's enough. One more outburst and I'll cuff you myself." Karen's lips clamped shut. Her chest heaved, her face blotched red and wet. The cul-de-sac was silent again, save for the hum of cruiser engines and the rhythmic flash of their lights. Finally, the lead officer broke the silence. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay right here while we take witness statements. If you move, if you raise your voice again, or if you try to leave," he tapped the cuffs on his belt, "you'll be spending the night in county." Karen's lower lip quivered. She nodded quickly, her arms wrapped around herself like armor. But even as she shrank back, the fire hadn't completely left her eyes. She muttered, barely audible, "This neighborhood, it doesn't belong to her. It never will." The officer's head snapped toward her, his voice low, edged with warning. "Careful." Karen swallowed hard, shrinking into herself again. The officers turned then, shifting their focus to the neighbors, who had started to cluster closer. If anyone here has seen or experienced similar incidents, now would be the time to speak. A beat of silence. Then Mr. Patel raised his hand. "I have. She's called the HOA on me for trimming my hedge on the wrong day. She threatened to fine me personally." Another voice piped up. "Mrs. Dawson from 3 doors down. She accused my daughter of stealing a package once. The footage proved it wasn't her, but she never apologized." The voices grew. One after another, neighbors stepped forward, emboldened. A chain of grievances unraveled under the glow of police lights. Karen's eyes widened as the testimonies piled up, her empire collapsing in real time. She shook her head, whispering frantically, "No, no, they're lying. They're all lying." But no one was listening anymore. The lead officer pulled a notepad from his pocket, jotting down details. His voice was steady, professional. "We'll need full statements from each of you. Thank you for your cooperation." Karen backed against her porch railing, cornered by truth. Her body trembled as she realized she wasn't just fighting me anymore. She was fighting the entire street. And then the younger officer looked back at her, his voice flat but final. "Ma'am, at this point, you should pray these are the only charges you face." Neighbors pile on with testimony, turning the entire street against Karen, while officers hint her situation may get much worse. Karen stood pressed against her porch railing, her arms wrapped around herself like a fragile shield. The same woman who once strutted through every HOA meeting with her clipboard and cutting remarks now looked cornered, stripped of her power. The younger officer faced the neighbors, pen ready. "Let's keep this orderly. One at a time, please." But order was the last thing on anyone's mind. Mrs. Dawson stepped forward first, her voice trembling but determined. "She's been harassing us for years. Last summer she called animal control because my dog barked once at the mailman." Mr. Patel added quickly, "She called the city inspector on me for planting tulips outside the approved HOA color scheme." A man from the far end of the cul-de-sac raised his phone. "She threatened to fine me $500 because I parked my truck in my own driveway overnight. Said it made the neighborhood look cheap. I've got her messages right here." Voices layered one over the other now, stories spilling into the humid night. Years of bottled frustration poured out like a dam breaking. "She screamed at my son for riding his skateboard. She took photos of my yard and posted them online. She threatened to sue me over Christmas lights." Each accusation hung in the air, weaving together into a tapestry of resentment. Neighbors weren't just whispering anymore, they were testifying. Karen's face twisted in disbelief. She shook her head violently, tears streaking down her cheeks. "No. No, you're all ganging up on me. None of this is true. You're exaggerating. You're making me the villain because she jabbed her finger toward me, she poisoned you against me." But her voice cracked, brittle and unconvincing. The lead officer wrote calmly, methodically, his pen scratching across the notepad. He didn't even look at Karen as he asked, "And you've all experienced this harassment?" A chorus of yes rolled over the cul-de-sac. Karen's legs wobbled. She clutched the railing tighter, her knuckles white. "You don't understand. I was protecting the neighborhood. That's my job. That's what the HOA elected me for." A teenager from across the street, phone still raised, called out, "Nobody elected you, Karen. You just volunteered and bullied everyone into silence." Laughter broke out this time, small, sharp, collective. It wasn't cruel, it was liberating. Neighbors who had felt silenced were finally speaking without fear. Karen gasped, the sound ragged. "That's not true. You all needed me. Without me this place would fall apart. Look at your lawns, your fences. You needed me." But her words rang hollow. No one nodded. No one looked grateful. The younger officer closed his notebook. His voice was crisp, final. "We've heard enough tonight to file an official report. False police calls. Harassment. Abuse of position." Karen's knees buckled slightly and she sank onto her porch step. Her hands trembled in her lap, her eyes darting from one officer to the other. "No, please. You can't do this to me. I was only trying to help." The lead officer's expression didn't soften. "Help? You put lives at risk tonight. Do you understand what could have happened if we'd come in thinking there was a firearm?" A single wrong move and someone could have been hurt, or worse. Karen's tears flowed freely now, though they still carried no accountability. I didn't think. That's the problem, the younger officer cut in. The crowd murmured again, louder this time, fueled by vindication. Neighbors who had been silent for years were emboldened, their voices sharper. You never think, Karen. You only control. You only humiliate. Phones caught everything. Each word, each tear, each desperate denial. The digital record of her downfall was sealed in dozens of pockets. Karen covered her face with her hands, her voice muffled. This isn't fair. You're ruining me. I finally spoke, my tone calm but edged with truth. No, Karen. You did this to yourself. Her hands dropped, her eyes blazing with one last ember of pride. You think you've won? You think this makes you better than me? You'll never belong here. Never. The younger officer turned to me then, his voice quieter, respectful. Commander, would you like to press charges for harassment? The words froze the cul-de-sac. All eyes snapped toward me. Phones tilted higher. Karen's breath hitched audibly. Her head whipped toward me, panic written across every line of her face. No, no, please. Don't. You can't. I'll lose everything. Please, I was just trying. Her words dissolved into sobs. The lead officer waited patiently, his pen poised. The neighbors stood silent, the weight of the question pressing down on the street. I looked at Karen, the woman who had tormented me since the day I moved in, who had dragged me into this mess, who had nearly put my life at risk tonight. And I thought, this was the moment. The officer asks the homeowner if she wants to press charges, while Karen pleads desperately for mercy in front of the entire neighborhood. The question still hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. Would you like to press charges for harassment? Every porch light seemed brighter. Every breath in the cul-de-sac seemed held. The neighbors leaned forward as though the weight of my answer might tip the entire street into history. Karen stared at me wide-eyed, lips trembling. Her tears were flowing freely now, streaks glistening under the police lights. Please, she whispered hoarsely. Then louder, desperate, please. Don't do this. I'll lose everything. My HOA position, my credibility. People will laugh at me. From the back of the crowd, someone muttered, too late for that. A ripple of low chuckles broke the silence, but it wasn't cruel, it was cathartic. A neighborhood finally exhaling years of pent-up tension. Karen shot to her feet, rage colliding with fear. She spun toward the crowd, arms outstretched like a preacher at the pulpit. You all think this is funny? After everything I've done to keep this place perfect? The rules, the inspections, the meetings, I sacrificed my time to keep this neighborhood from falling apart. But the neighbors weren't buying it anymore. Mrs. Dawson stepped forward, arms crossed. You didn't sacrifice anything, Karen. You bullied us. You humiliated us. You made this neighborhood a prison. Others nodded, murmuring their agreement. Karen's voice cracked. That's not true. I protected you. Without me, this place would be chaos. A teenager from across the street, still recording, called out, Newsflash, Karen, it already is. The crowd laughed louder this time, the sound rolling over Karen like a wave. Her face contorted, the desperation boiling into fury. She jabbed a finger at me again. This is her fault. She turned you all against me. She doesn't belong here and she never will. The lead officer's patience finally snapped. He stepped forward, his boots heavy against the pavement. His voice boomed with authority. That's enough, ma'am. You've harassed your neighbor, endangered lives, and now you're disrupting public peace. One more outburst and we'll escalate this situation. Karen froze, her chest heaving. But the fire in her eyes refused to die. She turned her attention back to me, her voice sharp and trembling. Do it. Press charges. Show them all who you really are. Show them that you're no better than me. The younger officer shifted slightly, positioning himself between us, his eyes fixed on Karen. His voice was quiet but edged with warning. Step back. Karen's breath came in ragged bursts. She paced like a caged animal, her sandals slapping the concrete. You don't understand. She's dangerous. She's not who she says she is. You're all blind. The neighbors groaned in unison, the exhaustion palpable. Mr. Patel shook his head, his voice carrying over the noise. Karen, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. But Karen didn't stop. Her voice rose higher, shriller, desperation dripping from every word. No. She's fooled you all. She's not the hero you think she is. She's hiding something. Something big. The lead officer turned sharply, his tone thunderous. Enough. You are 1 second away from being taken into custody. The cul-de-sac fell silent again. Karen froze mid-step, her face pale, her hands trembling. I exhaled slowly, the weight of years of harassment pressing against this single moment. My neighbors had seen her lies, the officers had exposed her desperation, and the cameras had captured every second. I opened my mouth to answer the question, but before I could, Karen lurched forward, her voice raw with fury. "You'll regret this. All of you. If I go down, I'll take every one of you with me." Gasps erupted from the neighbors. Phones jerked up higher, recording her meltdown. The younger officer stepped in, his hand clamping firmly on Karen's arm. "That's it. You're done." Karen tried to wrench free, shrieking, "Get your hands off me. You can't do this. I'm the HOA president." The officer's grip tightened, his voice cold. "Not anymore." The neighbors broke into scattered applause, cheers bubbling up from years of frustration finally given voice. Karen's face twisted with horror as she realized her kingdom of control was collapsing before her eyes. She pulled against the officer's hold, her cries raw and unhinged. "This is a mistake. She's lying. She's tricked you all. You'll regret this." But no one believed her anymore. The lead officer moved in, reaching for the cuffs on his belt. Karen's eyes went wide, her voice dropping into a pitiful plea. "Please, don't. I can't be arrested. My family, my reputation." He ignored her. His hand clicked the cuffs open. The neighbors held their breath. Phones zoomed closer. And just as the officer reached for her wrists, the officer is about to cuff Karen when she screams something shocking that makes everyone freeze. The metallic snap of handcuffs echoed in the night, but before they locked around her wrists, Karen shrieked, her voice cutting through the cul-de-sac like glass breaking. "You don't know the truth. She's hiding it from all of you. She's not just some commander, she's dangerous." The neighbors froze, the air thick with disbelief. Even the officers hesitated for a fraction of a second. The accusation was wild, desperate, but it was enough to make the crowd hold its breath. The younger officer jerked her back to reality, tightening his grip. "That's enough. Stop resisting." Karen thrashed, her voice raw and frantic. "You don't understand. She's not who she seems. She's got connections. Power. She'll destroy this neighborhood." Phones recorded every word, capturing her hysteria in vivid detail. Neighbors whispered among themselves, but no one moved to support her. "Not anymore." The lead officer snapped the cuffs onto her wrists with finality. The sound was sharp, undeniable. Karen gasped as the cold metal bit into her skin. "No. You can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president. I'm supposed to protect this place." The officer's tone was iron. "Not anymore. Tonight you crossed a line." Applause broke out again, louder this time, scattered cheers from neighbors who had endured her tyranny for years. Some clapped out of relief, others out of vindication, all of them united in the same feeling: freedom. Karen twisted in the officer's grip, her face red and wet with tears. "You're all ungrateful. Every one of you. I kept this neighborhood perfect, and this is how you repay me." Mrs. Dawson stepped forward, her arms crossed, her voice steady. "No, Karen. You made this neighborhood miserable. And tonight we all saw the truth." The crowd murmured in agreement. Neighbors nodded, some even shouting their grievances louder now that she couldn't retaliate. "You fined me for flowers. You screamed at my kids. You called code enforcement over a mailbox." Each accusation hit her like stones. She crumbled under them, her body sagging against the officer's hold. The younger officer spoke loudly, his voice carrying over the noise. "Karen, you are being cited for filing a false police report and harassment. You may also face further charges pending the witness statements we've collected tonight." Karen's knees buckled. No, please. I didn't mean it. I was just trying to." "Save yourself," someone muttered from the crowd. Karen's eyes darted wildly, searching for even a shred of sympathy. She found none. The lead officer turned to me then. His voice softened. "Commander, I want to apologize on behalf of the department. This should never have escalated to this point. Are you all right?" I nodded once, my voice steady. "I'm fine. Thank you for handling it." Karen let out a bitter laugh, though it cracked mid-breath. "Of course she's fine. She wins. She always wins." Her words didn't carry weight anymore. They fell into the night like broken glass, sharp but useless. The officer guided her toward the cruiser. Neighbors moved aside, parting like a tide. Phones captured every second. Karen stumbling, cuffed, defeated, her cries turning into incoherent sobs. "This is my neighborhood. Mine. she screamed, her voice muffled as the officer pushed her gently but firmly toward the back seat. "You'll regret this. All of you." The car door opened with a metallic creak. For a moment, Karen froze, her eyes wide as if realizing this was real. The cuffs, the flashing lights, the stares, it wasn't just a bad dream. She shook her head violently. "No. I can't go in there. Please. Please don't do this to me." The officer remained calm, professional. "Ma'am, this is the result of your actions. It's time to face them." Karen thrashed one last time, but it was weak, drained of power. The officer guided her down, folding her into the back seat. The door shut with a heavy thud. The crowd exhaled as one. Years of tension seemed to lift from the cul-de-sac in that single moment. But even as the relief spread, there was a deeper silence underneath. Everyone knew this wasn't just the end of Karen's reign, it was the beginning of the fallout. The younger officer turned to the neighbors. "We'll need official statements. Anyone willing to come down to the station tomorrow, please do so. The more detail, the stronger the case." Several nodded immediately. Some raised their hands. Others murmured their agreement. Karen's muffled sobs echoed faintly from inside the cruiser, but no one looked at her anymore. Her power was gone. The lead officer faced me again. "Commander, do you wish to pursue personal charges beyond tonight's incident?" All eyes turned back to me. Phones angled higher. Neighbors leaned in. Karen's face pressed against the cruiser window, pale and desperate, her eyes locked on mine. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, a plea or maybe a curse. The street was silent, waiting for my answer. With Karen cuffed in the back of the police car, the officer asks if the homeowner will press further charges. All eyes, including Karen's, are on her next words. The cruiser engine rumbled softly, a steady reminder of how far the night had spiraled. Neighbors lingered in small clusters, whispering, their faces lit by the glow of their phones. Karen sat cuffed in the back seat, her tear-streaked face pressed against the glass, eyes locked on me. The lead officer's question still hung heavy in the air. "Do you wish to pursue personal charges beyond tonight's incident?" For a long moment I said nothing. The cul-de-sac was silent but for the hum of the cruiser and the occasional chirp of a night insect. Every pair of eyes watched me. Some expected vengeance. Others expected mercy. Karen mouthed words again, frantic, her face pale. "Please, don't." I drew in a slow breath, then exhaled. "No. Not tonight. The evidence you've gathered is more than enough. Let the law handle it from here." A collective sigh rippled through the crowd. Some nodded approvingly, others looked surprised, but no one protested. The decision was final. The younger officer gave me a respectful nod. "Understood. We'll move forward with what we have." Inside the cruiser, Karen shook her head violently, her muffled cries fogging the glass. "No. No, you can't just leave it like this. Please." But her voice was lost under the roar of the engine as the officer shut the last door. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger. Not for me, not for the spectacle, but for the release of years of tension. The neighbors had finally seen Karen held accountable. Mrs. Dawson touched my arm gently. "Thank you for staying calm tonight. I don't think any of us could have handled it the way you did." I offered a small smile. Sometimes the best way to fight back is to stand still. Her eyes softened and she nodded. Around us, neighbors exchanged looks, not the wary glances of a street divided, but the tentative beginnings of solidarity. The officers climbed back into their cruisers. The lead officer leaned out his window one last time. "Commander, thank you for your patience. And for your service." I gave a small nod. "Thank you for handling this with professionalism." With that, the cruisers pulled away, their lights flashing against the dark houses before fading into the night. Karen's cries were swallowed by the distance, leaving only silence behind. The neighbors lingered for a moment longer, murmuring, shaking their heads in disbelief at what they'd witnessed. One by one, they drifted back inside, porch lights flicking off until only a few glowed faintly against the quiet street. I stood there alone for a moment, the cool night air brushing against my skin. Relief mingled with exhaustion. Karen had tried to break me, tried to paint me as a danger, but in the end, the truth had spoken louder. The lies, the harassment, the false accusations, they had all crumbled in the face of reality. And perhaps most importantly, the neighborhood had seen it with their own eyes. No more whispers. No more fear. I looked across the cul-de-sac at Karen's empty porch. 4 years, it had been a symbol of her control, her throne, her watchtower. Tonight it looked small, fragile, defeated. As I turned to go back inside, I thought about what the officer had said earlier. "You accused the wrong person tonight." Karen had made a mistake. But maybe in some twisted way she had done the neighborhood a favor. She had revealed herself fully, left no doubt about who she really was. And in doing so she had freed the street from her grip. I closed my door gently behind me. The silence of my home wrapped around me, calm and steady. For the first time since moving here it felt like peace. I poured a glass of water, sat by the window, and watched as the last porch light blinked off. The neighborhood slept easier tonight. And as I set the glass down I couldn't help but reflect. Power doesn't come from fear. It doesn't come from gossip. It doesn't come from shouting the loudest. Real power comes from truth. From standing your ground when it matters most. Tonight the truth had won. What would you do if your neighbor called the cops on you with a false accusation? Have you ever faced someone who abused their power in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We bring you real stories of justice, resilience, and community, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.